This is the Fox 5 RebZone Sports Show, sponsored by R.C. Willey and Levitt Law Firm.
Good evening and welcome inside the Red Zone. Kevin Bollinger alongside Running Rebels head coach TJ Otzelberger coming to you from inside Moby Arena after a frustrating second half led to a loss here in Fort Collins. Just one of those final 20 minutes where nothing would go right.
We had the game we needed for the first 17 minutes or so. We're up 33-25. They called timeout. Our guys were very intentional defensively about getting stops. It allowed us to have some pace and flow offensively, and then it got away from us. We knew transition defense and guarding the three-point line were both going to be really important. We didn't have enough effort on either front. They capitalized.
Well, let's show you what happened in this one where the Rebels did get off to a good start, and then Colorado State just turned the Jets on in the second half.
Welcome to Open Pass.
An orange out at Moby Arena and a fired-up crowd as the Runnin' Reds locked horns with the Rams. The defensive tone was set early as UNLV went into denial mode. Then they got in the flow offensively. Amari Hardy penetrates and dishes to Nick Blair for the slam. Then Marvin Coleman with the steal. He runs the floor and feeds Bryce Hamilton for the lay-in. Colorado State would answer with the long ball. Isaiah Stevens with a corner three. And on the next trip down, Stevens connects from the other corner. UNLV responded with a run to take the lead. Hamilton to Mbake Jong. He throws it down. Then Donnie Tillman with a triple. Hamilton drops a pull-up jumper, and Coleman goes trifecta. The referees made themselves center stage in this game, taking away any flow with ticky-tack calls and then letting big ones go. Hardy is hammered, no call, but Blair is there for the tip-in. Hamilton heated up again in the lane, then driving for two more. Colorado State's defense, though, frustrated UNLV all game. Off the Rebel turnover, the Rams run, and Kendall Moore gets the easy lay-in. Once again, though, UNLV would rally. Tillman works in the lane. He gets the hoop and the harm. Then the big block by Nick Blair. And Tillman downs long distance as the Rebs built an 8-point lead with 3:39 left in the half. They got outscored 16-3 the rest of the way. The Rams hit back-to-back threes. Then David Roddy drives and flies. He gets the bucket and the bump. And Isaiah Stevens hits a long three to beat the buzzer as Colorado State led 41-36 at the half. UNLV got out of the gates quick in the second half. Hamilton buried a three. And then Tillman is trapped by the double team, puts up a shot, gets his own miss for the putback and the pass. And Coleman dropped a trifecta. The Colorado State went into the bonus with 14:40 left in the game. The Rebels had foul trouble and the Rams took advantage. Deshaun Thomas with the inside bucket. Hiron Edwards goes the length of the floor for the lay-in and then follows that with a triple. Then Hardy turns it over. The Rams run in transition, and John Tonje slams it home to open up a 17-point CSU lead. UNLV would try to get back in it. Jonah Antonio hitting a three. Hamilton knocks down a floater, and Elijah Mitru-Long goes hard to the rim for the and one. This nice move by Hamilton for the reverse lay and cut it to 9 with 5:40 to go, but the Rebels would get no closer as the Rams put it away. A poor second half does UNLV in as they fall in Fort Collins 95-77.
They got a lot of rhythm, and we didn't, make a run back to, stop their rhythm. We didn't have enough energy, and I feel like our togetherness wasn't there like as it should be. And they just got going and they just got hot, and it's tough to beat teams on the road when they're in their groove.
We give these guys early threes in the start, wide open threes. They're good players, so you see the ball going one or twice. The net gets bigger and bigger, and it's hard to guard when you shoot like that.
You mentioned that 33-25 lead. From that point on in the first half, they went on a 16-3 run to end the half. That was really the turning point of the game.
We talked to our guys about staying poised and together in those tough moments. They scored the 6 points. We called a timeout trying to calm our guys down. The rhythm and momentum of the game got away from us, and I thought our focus, as the crowd got into the game, our focus wavered, and we were never really to get back to being that team defensively that we were early.
So much focus is on Colorado State's offense, which has put up some big numbers, but their defense
was pretty tight in this game. A much better defensive team than people give them credit for.
Yeah, they really collapsed the paint on penetration. You hear them yelling out fire anytime there's a drive, and they're collapsing their whole defense. They want you to kick it and shoot. We had 32 three-point attempts. I believe we made 10 of them. They really try to pack the paint and make you beat them from over the top. We weren't able to knock down quite enough shots.
If there was one thing that maybe it seemed to catch the Rebels off guard defensively were the backdoor cuts. And you guys did make an adjustment, but that was something that they did a lot in this game.
Well, I thought, especially in that second half, as it got away from us, our guys kind of got worried about their man, and we got spread out too much. We need to have active hands on the ball, pressuring the basketball, so there's no direct line passes. And then we've got to make sure that the guy who's setting the screen, we're in there providing some help. I think the momentum of the game got the best of us. We weren't able to do that.
I know you can't comment on officiating. I can. It was horrific. My question for you is, when you have so many ticky-tack calls being made and you have guys in foul trouble, and in the second half you were in the bonus with over 14 minutes left, they were in the bonus, I should say. How does that adjust what your players can do in terms of aggressiveness, knowing that they have 3-4 fouls late in games?
We're a physically aggressive team. We've got to play that way for us to be successful. We had a lot of guys that were hampered with foul trouble throughout the game, so now you're playing guys out of necessity or moving different guys in and out, lineups maybe you didn't plan on. We've got to do a good job of not fouling, of being physical but not fouling. Obviously, the fouls stacked up today, and it really came back to hurt us.
What was the message to the team after this game for them to learn something to take forward from this loss at Colorado State?
When you play on the road, that togetherness is really important, and you can't splinter when another team hits a basket or two or goes on a bit of a run, and I thought that happened a little bit today. So we've got to stay together. We've got to keep our defensive focus, even regardless of what's going on in the game. We lost that focus today. We know that's going to be really important come Wednesday. We played a tremendous defensive game against Utah State in our first outing, but we also know they're going to make some adjustments and be hungry for that victory. We've got to guard 40 minutes start to finish.
Well, win or lose, it is always on to the next one, and that's what the Runnin' Rebels will do. 2 games next week as they get ready to hit the road on Wednesday before returning home on Saturday. We're going to preview those 2 games straight ahead in the Red Zone.
You're watching the Fox 5 RebZone Sports Show, sponsored by RC Willey and Levitt Law Firm.
Back to a 2-game schedule for the Runnin' Rebels this week as they travel to Logan to take on Utah State Wednesday, then host Fresno State at the MAC on Saturday. The week starts Wednesday night in Logan against Utah State, and the Aggies will be out for blood. UNLV dominated Utah State on January 1st at the Thomas & Mack in a 70-53 win that saw them shut down Sam Merrill and crank things up defensively so much that the Aggies were visibly frustrated. Since then, Utah State has slowly got things back on track, and that coincides with the return of Neemias Queta, who did not play in the first meeting. The 7-footer is a difference maker.
He's an elite rim protector. He's great with screen and roll defense. He's a great communicator. He really understands how to play. He's an excellent passer for a guy that's 6'11", 7 foot tall. And then he can score. He really developed his touch around the basket.
Then there's playing in Logan at the Spectrum, one of the toughest buildings for opponents in the country when it's rocking. The student section is loud and ruthless, and the Aggie players expect that for an advantage.
It's such a great experience playing there every night. The floor is right, or the crowd is right on top of you. It's a basketball-only arena, so you can definitely feel the atmosphere. And the students just do such a good job of coming out and supporting. And they're knowledgeable about the game. They know stuff about the other team, so they're able to heckle them. And then not just the student body, but the general fans as well are also very good. So it's about as good as you'll get, for sure.
On Saturday, the Runnin' Rebels return home for a rematch with Fresno State, whom they beat 81-80 in double overtime in Fresno on December 4th. The Bulldogs have struggled this season, but they have the talent to come up and bite a team at any time.
We like being an underdog. We're the underdog every year, and we just make it happen every year.
Nate Grimes is the straw that stirs the drink. The Las Vegas native has the ability to take over games, but has been inconsistent this year, something his coach wants changed.
Consistency is what we're looking for. You know, when he's consistent on the boards and he can score it, we're very good. When he's not, we didn't have as much success. We love him. He's worked really hard all summer on his body and on his shot.
As UNLV fans know, teams always get up for games in Las Vegas, and Fresno State is no different.
It is a different atmosphere. You know, they got the fireworks and the floor that changes and all that kind of stuff. So, it's a really good atmosphere to play in. It does have that NBA kind of feel with, the dome arena and the lifted floors. So, it's a fun environment to play in.
A big week for the Rebs, who look to solidify themselves on the top half of the Mountain West standings.
This Utah State game is going to be fascinating because you guys laid a pretty good thumping on them early in the season. They didn't have Keita. This is a team that's going to come out and give you guys everything they have.
They will. They're a team they're a veteran group. They've been together. They went to the NCAA tournament and virtually have their entire team back. They're a group they've had some adversity with some injuries, and now they're kind of getting back to full strength and hitting that rhythm. So we know with how we played on our floor and as well as we did, that they're going to be really amped up for that game. We're going to have to bring our best effort.
Now that Keita is going to be back in the mix, how does that change the game plan when you have a big man who can be dominant in there on both ends of the floor?
Well, he really protects the rim defensively and shuts down that paint. And then on the offensive side of things, he's a tremendous passer when he catches it in the post. And similar to what we saw from Carvacho, it's a guy they can throw it to. And if you double team, they're going to skip out and knock down inside-out threes. So we're going to have to keep our focus the whole game defensively. We're going to have great ball movement offensively. But we know Keita changes that game for sure.
After the Colorado State game, the players talked about the environment here and how they let a little bit the student section and the fans rattle and get to them. They haven't been in Logan yet, a lot of them. It's going to be this times 10. Are they prepared for the environment of what they're going to see in the Spectrum?
We'll talk to our guys about it. We know it's a really hostile atmosphere, and especially right now their team is playing pretty well, so I'm sure they're going to have even a bigger crowd. And our guys need to know that going in, but we've got to be able to block that out and play Running Rebel basketball.
And then on Saturday, you finally get to return home. Fresno State comes to town. You haven't played them since the beginning of December with that weird Mountain West schedule. It was a double overtime game. A lot has changed for both teams since then. How much do you take from the tape of that game, or do you look at more recent games that they've played?
I think it's some of both. I mean, certainly want to see the matchups and how things went from that standpoint. Also, teams change a lot through the course of the season. We're a totally different team. They are as well. So it'll be a combination of both. But I really believe with our group, if we can focus on us and our continued improvement, that's where we need to be the best version of ourselves. It's not as much about the opponent. So as much as we're preparing for other teams, we'll get ourselves ready to play.
Time for another break. When we come back, we're going to go down under and give a feature on the Aussie on the Running Rebels. We're going Aussie, 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 oi, oi, oi. That's up next as the Red Zone rolls on.
You're watching the Fox 5 RebZone Sports Show, sponsored by R.C. Willey and Levitt Law Firm.
Throughout the season, we've been trying to give you a better glimpse and get to know the Running Rebels a whole lot better. This week, we feature Jonah Antonio.
Running Rebel sharpshooter Jonah Antonio has had a long journey to get where he is. The native of Perth, Australia, came to the States as a teenager to play high school basketball. Basketball is becoming a big-time sport, but it hasn't reached the level of youth programs that we have in the States.
In Australia, it's like there's no high school basketball really, so it's all club. So in Australia and Western Australia, we have SBL, which is a second league pro team, but like all those little pro teams have clubs, so under 18s, under 16s, and that's where you play growing up.
Antonio played Australian football until he was 11 and decided to focus on basketball. But Australian football is the national sport and has a special place for him.
Most popular sport, it's like what people, everyone grows up playing it, basically, and then some people play rugby as well. It's probably, I think it goes like AFL, rugby, and then basketball. And basketball and cricket are kind of in the you know, same ballpark. But yeah, AFL it's a great sport. It's really exciting. You know, it's good to watch, but it's just like for me, I don't know anything about American football. You know what I mean? So I'm watching the game, I have no idea what's going on.
There is precedent for a Mountain West basketball player to return home and switch to Australian football. Former New Mexico guard Hugh Greenwood has become a star of the sport down under, but Antonio says he doesn't plan to follow suit.
They try to poach the kind of taller, more lean guys, to go play AFL, later on, but nah, I don't think it's for me.
But Antonio does plan to return home after his playing days are over, to raise a family and get back to the things that he enjoyed as a kid.
I'd like to help kids in Australia who want to get over here, do the same thing I've done, because it wasn't easy, and then, it'd be good to talk to someone who's done it and get help, but I didn't have anyone like that, so I'd like to be there for Aussie kids who are trying to do the same thing.
Maybe his accent will come back full bore. While we all hear a thick Australian accent, Antonio says his time in the States has changed it, and it's brought up by his mates all the time.
Everyone back home reckons I've lost my accent. All my friends and family like, oh, you sound so American and stuff like that. And I'm just like, oh no, man, I can't tell you, but I think I probably lost it a little bit. But yeah, everyone always gives me grief about that back home.
Back home has been in the news. The wildfires that are ravaging Australia have been tough for Antonio to watch. That's why he's donating $5 for every three-pointer he makes in conference play as part of his GoFundMe campaign.
It's tough to see it. It's really bad for the wildlife, seeing all those animals suffering and, people losing their homes.
Antonio hasn't been home in 3 years, and he's had quite the journey to get where he is now. After high school in Kansas, he went to Mount St. Mary's in Maryland, where he played alongside fellow Rebel Elijah Mitra-Long for a season, then transferred to a junior college in Texas. He's had to make a lot of life-changing decisions without the luxury of having family and close confidants with him. That has been the hardest part, being alone.
When you move from one country to another with no family, you grow up like that, because you're on your own really, and the time difference, so you don't really talk to your family that much, and first couple of years are really hard, but then you get used to it.
When he had to make his final decision, it was TJ Otzelberger, who he connected with on a personal and basketball level. Otzelberger was still at South Dakota State at the time, but Antonio waited to see what developed.
My JUCO year, obviously I was a ranked JUCO player. I had like 30 offers, and I was dealing with a lot of people. And when you get older, you just realize what's real and what's people blowing smoke. And coach was just he was my guy from day one, and he just kept it real with me every day. So I was like, there's no question. Wherever he went, I was gonna go.
Now he's hit the jackpot with UNLV and Las Vegas, his favorite place that he's lived in the States so far.
I love Vegas. I didn't, before coming here, I knew nothing about it. Obviously the movies, Hangover, stuff like that, and it's like, Sin City or whatever. But when you come out here, you see it's not really like, what people say. It's a good community. Every place I've lived in America hasn't really been as nice as Vegas. Like I lived in Levelland, Texas, where there was, one Dairy Queen and a Subway, but you come out here, it's just, it's a luxury, yeah, so I'm grateful.
But the jump to Mountain West play hasn't been easy, especially on the defensive side, something Antonio joked he didn't think he'd have to worry about much.
It's funny because when I thought I was going to play for Coach TJ, it was going to be all offense, because at South Dakota State, I didn't play any defense. They just shot the ball, and just ran it up the court and shot threes.
An early season injury sidelined Antonio and has made his road back more difficult, but he does see a light at the end of the shooting tunnel.
I was out for a little bit, for a month and a half, and I wasn't in rhythm, I wasn't shooting, and then I came back, and I was like, it's gonna be fine, it'll just come back to me. But then, it wasn't coming back to me. I played like 4 or 5 games, and I was shooting like 20% maybe over that stretch. So it's like, you just gotta get I gotta get in the gym a little bit more, I gotta get with Coach Buckley a little more, find my rhythm.
A rhythm in shooting, a rhythm in life. The journey has always been about finding a rhythm, something that he's found here in Las Vegas at UNLV, and a place where Jonah Antonio hopes the beat will go on for some time to come.
This is a kid that you have been recruiting and had a relationship with for a while now. and we've kind of seen him develop. What did you see in him initially when you were at South Dakota State that made him attractive to you, and compared to what he even is now here at UNLV?
Well, our team at South Dakota State was a prolific three-point shooting team. That was our identity, and we identified Jonah as one of those guys that would be able to come in and really help us space the floor. Early in the year, he shot the ball tremendously well, had a little bit of an issue with his wrist, and now he's still kind of getting back in his rhythm. But just really think a lot of Jonah as a person, his character. I think he's a guy that is a good teammate and can really make some shots.
He has struggled a little bit defensively with this team, and joked in the story that we just showed that he didn't think that he was going to have to play defense on a teacher afterwards because he saw those South Dakota State teams. That's the biggest adjustment when guys come up into the Mountain West, is getting to know the defense.
I think so. I think the teams that do well are the best defensively because that travels on the road. We've found that we've got to continue to keep that intentional focus. I know with Jonah that he's improving in that area every day and can continue to get better there.
One final break for us. We're coming back with the Running Rebel Plays of the Week right after this.
You're watching the Fox 5 RebZone Sports Show, sponsored by R.C. Willey and Levitt Law Firm.
Coach, good luck this week. We will see you in Logan for Wednesday night's game at Utah State. We leave you tonight with the Running Rebel Plays of the Week. Thanks for joining us in the Reb Zone, and good night.
The RebZone Sports Show, sponsored by R.C. Willey and Levitt Law Firm.